Do you love KDE and Linux and the Qt framework? If you do, KaOS is probably the Linux distribution for you. And we are going to go ahead and look at today KaOS, apparently Linux with air conditioning? Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so if you like this type of content, where we teach you the how and the why to test out Linux to see if it might be the exact computer system you would need to take control of your life. Well, as I was perusing through the latest Linux distributions, KaOS has released a new version a few weeks ago, and I went ahead and downloaded it to have a brief look. And as I started looking at the release notes today, I realized they are either utilizing AI and not editing their release notes, or they have come up with the very first Linux distribution with built-in air conditioning. And hey, as a van dweller traveling around in the summer, I would love Linux with air conditioning. So let's go ahead and have a look. Of course, we are being a little bit pithy here. That's fine. KaOS is a distribution which focuses specifically on the Qt framework. They do not have GTK in here at all, and this allows them to keep their package base much more streamlined compared to other Linux distributions out there. They also do not include any software that they cannot get working without GTK. Now, they do have a few compatibility layers they can use, but for the most part, everything is going to be Qt and KDE, and this is focusing on the latest versions of everything. I do like that they have listed every single package in here with providing links to it inside their repository. You can, of course, click the full list for all of those, but we're going to see what that looks like on the live as we install. And I want to go ahead and show you the installation of this distribution as well, because the installation step is a little bit different and gives you a lot of really good options that I want to highlight why this is a really good distribution in that perspective. Now, where do we get to this crazy air conditioning stuff? If you go back to the blog post and you look at the latest news releases, this is the May 2024, and it says, "Great pleasure to present to you the May release of a stable new ISO. For the Plasma desktop, the latest Plasma 605, KDE Gear 2405.0, and Framework 6.2.0 are included, all built on Qt 671. Changes include the KDE Gear. We have more information from Dolphin and things like that. And then we get down to this interesting sentence down here, which leads me to believe this is possibly AI generated. Itinerary now shows more information about your train and coach facilities, including general comfort features such as air conditioning or Wi-Fi, as well as things specifically relevant to if you are traveling with young children, a bicycle, or a wheelchair." So there we have it, guys. This is also in the release notes. This is actually where I first saw it down here. Itinerary now shows more information. So did they copy and paste? Is this AI that did that? I have no idea. You guys can let me know. Obviously, this is an error. So KaOS guys, you might want to fix your release notes. Also, I did notice reading through that there are this section here is repeated, duplicated pretty much exactly. So GTK2 is finally removed from the KaOS, and they're using an internal YTK is used for our door, which generally was a GTK, but effectively now they're using Qt for everything. So by knowledge, they don't even have GTK3 at all. So there you have it. There is how we get our Linux with air conditioning. I don't know. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump on over to my VirtualBox, and we're going to go ahead and set this guy up. So we'll start in here, and I've already put my KaOS distribution over here, and we're going to go ahead and boot this guy up and see what our options are. We got a nice little screen here. It's welcoming us to it. We can start. We can do a NVIDIA non-free. So that's included. We can boot from the hard disk, or we can do a few other things. We're going to go ahead and launch the just the basic live key. Here we are just booting in for the first time, and I do like that even on my VirtualBox here, it goes right on into full screen mode, so we don't have to mess with changing any of these screen resolutions while the system boots up. And now we have the option here, and we have install, we have our guide, we have our donate, documentation, and forum. And we do have a nice list which gives us the passwords. That's something that is missing from some distributions. You might need to go around and hunt around for what their defaults are. We have the basic about, which gives us the information. And so it's moving away from this. I'm just going to see if we have any mention of air conditioning in this over here. Hopefully we don't, but we'll see. Okay, there we are. And then here is your full package list. So you can see that the full package list will give us a list of every application that is on here total. So that's actually works out really well. Now let's go ahead back to our main and we will walk through our installation process. So when you boot up the installation process, we are going to start by, this part here was a little wonky when I did my first testing. You can see American English and it says select language. Our next is not selected here. I had to hit this, reselect American English, and then I think hit enter. I don't know what it was. Maybe we're just waiting for it to download something. You'll notice the next key isn't there. I had to mess around a little bit. I don't know if I did something that caused the next button to show up or if I just had to wait for it. I'm not really sure. So let's try. So that's one thing I had noticed and that I had noticed in the past. I tried clicking everywhere else. We can't move on next, but we don't have any indication. And from what the new user might see, it looks like we can't move on. Now, all of a sudden, the next button, if you notice, just showed up. So it'd be really nice if we could get something. I think this is something in the installer because I've seen this not just on KaOS. I've seen this on other distributions as well where we couldn't get past this initial step until something downloaded. Now it wants to check the time zone, and New York is clearly in the middle of Kansas. Well, I guess not in the middle of Kansas, kind of up closer to Denver, but it does list our time zone here. Our American English is set on the numbers and dates and the system locales, so that's fine. I'm not going to care that the pin is mapped somewhere over there in Kansas. It should be closer to, the eastern seaboard, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and pick next. Now here we have some toggle buttons. We can either go with a minimal install, removes all extra applications, and decide later. So example is what won't not be on here is an Office suite, media players, no image viewer or printer support. It'll be just a desktop file browser and a package manager. So this, if you want to go ahead and build your system up yourself, you can do that. You can do the full install just without an Office suite, which will presumably give you all of that extra print support, etc., etc. Or we can go with the full with the LibreOffice support. We'll go ahead and install with that. And now we can choose, do we want to use Pipewire or do we want to use Pulse Audio? So, of course, if you don't know the difference, leave it at Pipewire, the default. It tends to work a little bit better right now, although it is a newer framework. So if you are having issues or something, you might want Pulse Audio, but whatever that is. All right, now we're going to go ahead and erase our disk. You can see our default is XFS. We can do XFS, ext4, ButterFS, or ZFS. And then you can choose your swap with Hibernate, without, or swap to file. Let me go ahead and change that to swap to file. We'll see if that makes things working a little bit better. Okay, that checking file system was spinning for quite a while when I made that change, and it never stopped. I actually canceled it. This is that screen here. So I don't know what it's doing. If it needs to do this, I have no idea. I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to swap to file. I'm going to see how long it takes to actually stop. So I let that spin here for 5 minutes. It's sitting here for like 5 minutes. You'll note my time. And so I don't know if this is an error in the system. I'm not sure what in the world that's doing. We're going to go ahead and move on. Well, first let's go ahead and look at our encryption options. So here you can encrypt the system as well. So you can go ahead and do that. We're not going to bother encrypting. Of course, every single change, it seems to pull that thing up, which never seems to go anywhere. 5 minutes of waiting for something to spin, I don't think sounds really amazing. All right, so here we can choose our bootloader. We can do grub or we can do no bootloader at all. If you do not do any form of bootloading, well, then you're not going to be able to boot this unless you're installing it onto a drive that, or maybe you have another disk that you're using as your bootloader. We don't have the option as to where to install a bootloader, I'm noticing. So presumably it's just going to install it on whatever disk was our partitions. And okay, well, our whole system just crashed. So, I don't know, maybe we're a little leery here. Now it looks like we might need to wait for another few minutes for this to go back through. So let's check this out. All right, so after about 30 seconds of waiting, the next is there. Let's see if it saved everything. Okay, New York, that's fine. That's fine. Good, good. Go ahead and erase the disk. Here we can select the storage, so I'm not sure if whatever we choose to do with selecting the storage, if that'll work or not. We're going to skip through that because apparently it doesn't do anything. Hit next, and now we can go ahead and hit in our users. Do KaOS, and then we need to keep a password. So we can reuse user password as root password. And then we can log in automatically. We can validate password quality. Don't care about that. Let's go ahead and hit our next. And so now we have just all of our options: United States, America, New York. Partitions are on SDA and running the bootloader. So it looks as though it's probably going to put grub on whatever partition you're installing to, but I don't know. I would have to test that. That's something we ran into looking at Linux Mint, where even if you're installing on SDB, it will put the bootloader on SDA. Let's go ahead and hit install now, and this might take a few minutes to install, so we're going to come back when this is done installing. Our installation is done. I'd say it took about 10 or so minutes. I did actually have to restart it. I had said this was Octopi for some reason. It is Calamaris, and once again, that Calamaris bug showed up, where if you have something on your disk, oftentimes the Calamaris installer fails to install. So I had to close the system down and wipe the disk and then restart the installer. And once I did that, the installation now completed correctly. So let's go ahead and reboot for the first time. And now we can go ahead and log in. So you can see our default is Wayland. We do have X as an option. We'll go ahead and enter our password. And I guess we just hit enter. There's no login button there that I saw. The buttons will reboot or shut down or something. So let's go ahead and log back in for the first time here. All right, so now when we get in here, we can toggle this off if we want to. Launch at system start. Here it tells us all of the packages here. And here's wallpapers, documents, advanced settings, about, news, and there's the quit button. We don't want to hit that yet. So let's go ahead and start here with the customize. We have our widget style. We have our plasma theme, our window decoration. I believe I covered all of these options in our previous video looking at this, but we'll just go ahead and have a brief look at these as well. So you can go, we can choose our Breeze Dark as a darker, more modern theme. Oxygen is a darker, more skeuomorphic theme. So if you like those, that's an option there. Here's your window decorations. We have a couple different options. And then we can do our mouse behavior. This is one because KDE does, many distributions running KDE does single click, double click type stuff. Looks like that's not where you make that section here. This is just our device enable, left-handed, right-handed, things like that. There will be other settings for double clicking versus single clicking. Here's your icon set. So a lot of just your basic theming options. I like the theming that they already have. Here's your virtual desktop, so you can choose how many desktops we have. I'm not a huge fan of the panels being on the side like this, but it's all right. We'll go ahead and stick with it for now. There's your colors. So you can change your color options if you would like. What is highlighted? No idea which one is actually selected right now. Oh, I guess it's this down the bottom one. Is it Midna, I think? All right, so here's your font settings. As far as your packages, so you can choose one of the groups to see the various packages available. So here is Firefox. Let's see. So we have the Falcon web browser. You can do Firefox, Google Chrome, Opera, Otter browser. Never seen that one. Under email clients, we have Kmail and Thunderbird. Video editors, Kdenlive, OpenShot, Lightworks. Here's your music players. Elsa, Strawberry, Cantata, QMMP. I think QMMP has the one that looks like Winamp if you're interested in that. So we have Scrooge, Sigil, Scribus. This is Sigil is the system that I use for doing ebooks. So if you're interested in that, my writing channel actually has a lot of tutorials on Sigil. But that's interesting. Our Office applications don't actually have the things like LibreOffice, which we had it install automatically. And then there's wallpapers. We can go ahead and look at the wallpapers. We can look at our latest. We can look at our downloads. Here we go. There's Monument Valley. That's a nice spot there. Beautiful spot in Utah. And then you can go with your popular, your oldest, downloaded options. We're just going to go ahead and keep where we're at for now. Here's your documentation. So if you want to look into different documentation, does this have Pacman in it? Interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's documentation for Pacman. So presumably we're using Pacman. I didn't actually look into that. What is our package manager? Is your firewall, energy saving, system D. So a lot of different configurations that we have. Yeah, there's Pacman cache. So there we have it. Let's go ahead and have a brief look at our system. Let's see if our meta key is mapped. We have our favorites here. Here's all applications. Here's under development. Education, gaming. So Elsa's installed. We have K3B disk burning. We have simple screen recorder, which probably won't work. I think I pointed that out in the previous one. Simple screen recorder does not work under Wayland, yet they give it to us installed by default with a Wayland default system. So if you are interested in using simple screen recorder, you're going to have to log out and log back in under that X session we showed you earlier, because simple screen recorder does not work under Wayland. So you can see here it says you're using a non-X11 Windows system, which is currently not supported. So if you do need simple screen recorder, you will need to log out and log back in with that. So there is our system. Overall, we're not going to dig much further into that, just because from here that becomes a lot like other distributions. This is why some people make the argument it doesn't really matter which distribution. It really actually does, because this one here, for example, it focuses on things with Qt defaulting. So some applications that I prefer, which are more GTK based, I'm not going to find. Let's do Pacman SS and do email. So this will tell us what email clients are here. You can see it's Thunderbird. So let's go ahead and do the same one, and we're going to look for Evolution, which is my preferred email client. You'll notice it is not here. And the reason it is not here is Evolution is a GNOME application. Although it is my absolute favorite email client, we do not have that as an option. So that's one of the things about KaOS, is that it does not have nearly as many packages as some other systems might have. And so we have to keep that in mind. So it may not, you might want to do a little bit of research to see. You can see when we just did the search for mail, we have snail, we have Kmail as an option. We have, let's see, mail comments. Some of these are just in simple tools. So we do not have a lot of actual webmail clients. It looks like we have Thunderbird and Kmail effectively. And so just keep in mind that your distribution might have different software. In this case, KaOS is not based on something. It's not based on Arch. It's not based on Debian. It is its own distribution, so it has its own packages available. You might want to hunt around which packages you might want to see is it available before you actually try and install something. Let's see if VLC is available, which it should be. So Photon, here's VLC debug, there's VLC. So we can install that. Of course, that works with the Qt framework, so that's not a surprise at all. Let's see, do we have a general software installer? We might have Discover. Octopi, that's, yeah, I don't know why I said Octopi is the installer. Octopi is kind of like Synaptic Package Manager, but it is, it's obviously that Synaptic is more for apt and things. Let's see, what else do we have? Do we have any? It looks like we do not have any other basic software applications. So we don't have a good place to explore for software. Let's just Discover on here. I'm surprised Discover's not in here. That's a Plasma application. Let's, while we're here, before we close everything out, let's go ahead and see if how the, that's the calculator. I was looking for. We installed the Office suite, so I wanted to go ahead and have a look at what the Office suite looked like, make sure it styles itself properly, which it should. This distribution generally does a good job of looking well. So there you go. So it looks pretty nice. Full Office suite. This is a misspelling. Ooh, looks like we don't have our spell checking enabled. It does say automatic spell checking. But we may not actually have dictionaries involved. So it does say that it is enabled. Let's do spelling. Yeah, very interesting. So it might be missing a package HunSpell. There you go. Let's see. Here's autocorrect. You'll see that there's nothing in here. User-defined dictionaries. Yeah, we're not actually seeing the spell checking work. So let's go ahead and investigate that real quick. That is something that you might want. Let's do a Pacman -SS, and I think it's called HunSpell. Hum. There you go. So we'd have to do a sudo Pacman-S. Let's do HunSpell, and I think we also might need to do a -en. And I don't know if we need the regular HunSpell as well. We'll go ahead and do that as well. Okay, let's exit there. Let's see if the Office documents are actually working properly now. These are some of those things you might look for if you install a Linux distribution. This is also why the distribution can indeed matter. Let's check our spelling. There you go. Now we have some stuff. So you can see that if you are lacking spell checking, you need to install HunSpell. That was what they did. So that's something they also didn't do. Anyway, so KaOS is going to be a really good distribution. As far as limited down, it works well under Qt. Yeah, there's obviously a few limitations. Let's go ahead and double check since we started with this. I did not find any references to air conditioning. So very sadly, we don't actually have that air conditioning like they had suggested we might. So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this guy up. So there is our brief look at KaOS. The installation process did give me a couple of issues. So we actually had 3 separate issues on my installation. The first is it did take a good 30 seconds before that next button showed up. And I am in a good spot with good internet connection where I'm at, so it's not like a slow internet was doing something. The second issue we had is there's that partition table thing that just sits there spinning apparently forever until you close it and move on. We did have one situation where the installer simply crashed, and we had a case where the installer would not format the drive. However, I have seen that several times with the Calamares installer. So that's not something specific to the distribution. Once we get it installed, it is really nice. It's nice to give us all of the packages and a very nice first start screen that gives us all of the various options to change the most basic configuration settings you might want. And we do have a system that out of the box looks beautiful and it runs very smooth. Now, you might have noticed a little bit of lag here and there. That's simply because I'm recording this at the same time in HD as well. And I have noticed a few distributions when you're running Wayland are a little bit slower to respond when I'm also recording with OBS simultaneously. So that's not a knock on the distribution at all. This is very snappy in my original tests without OBS. And when I did have to restart the installer when I wasn't recording, everything there ran really smooth as well. So it is a good, smooth distribution. We do see some limitations. HunSpell is not installed by default. So if you install Microsoft, wow, bad. Excuse me. If you install LibreOffice and your spell checking is not working, you need to install the HunSpell package. That might be something they consider installing in the future, although there can be some complications with multi-languages and things like that. But that is definitely something to consider. So overall, this is a good distribution. Sadly, they did not have air conditioning like they said in the release notes, but I didn't expect them to be anyway. You guys might want to fix your release notes. With that, thank you guys for watching. Definitely have a look at KaOS. It is going to be linked down below. It is an excellent distribution if you prefer staying straight with that Qt framework. This is one of the best you're going to get for staying specifically there. With that, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.